Hey guys, welcome to today's episode, and we are so excited. We have Barton Scott from Upgraded Formulas, and today we are talking about minerals and why you are not feeling your best. So, Barton, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chantel.
I want to first start by talking about leg cramps because one of the things, people who are listening to this podcast, a lot of them are doing intermittent fasting, a lot of them are doing keto. And one of the things that I always say is that when you're doing intermittent fasting and when you're doing keto, you might not be able to get some of the things that are high in potassium. So things that are high in potassium are like apricots and dried fruits and oranges, bananas,
Okay.
potatoes, sweet potatoes, right? So a lot of people who
Yeah.
are doing a keto diet, they're like, I'm not eating potatoes, I'm not eating sweet potatoes, I'm not eating bananas. They're trying to avoid these things.
Mhm.
They're not getting the potassium they're needing. And so we're seeing a lot of questions come in that are saying, listen, I'm doing fasting, I'm doing doing a keto diet, and I'm getting terrible Charlie horses, I'm getting terrible
Yeah.
leg cramps. And we are seeing that when they are adding magnesium and potassium, the combination, that
Mhm.
is kind of the magic elixir. So I want you to talk about what's causing the leg cramps and what people need to do to help relieve that.
So I actually put out a product recently called Upgraded Cramp Relief, and it's based on something I've seen for many, many years now. I started researching for upgraded formulas 12 years ago, and I had been supplementing since I was literally like 12 or 13. 36 now, and the mash between my background, for people that haven't heard us speak before, is I studied chemical engineering. My mom got really sick. I'd been studying nutrition since I was a teenager because I wrestled and competed at a high level in that sport and some others. And yeah, I saw all of it really break down, and she ultimately passed. And I wanted to have the solutions that would have saved her. Um, and then also I've just always been focused on performance. So that was like longevity, but also performance. And what I've noticed is that, since we were kids, we were always taught like potassium for cramps. And the part that gets that wrong is, although you're completely, when you're talking about the keto diet and not eating potassium rich foods, I completely agree with that. Now, if you're just talking about solving for a cramp right now immediately, the if you actually absorb the magnesium you're taking, which every product we've ever tested in a lab absorbs at under 30%. So that's the reason why we have our delivery system that I developed as a chemical engineer for all of our products, and that are mineral based. And really, the interesting part of it is that potassium is all about actually contracting or causing a cramp, which is like a failed contraction, a stagnant or stuck contraction. And the reason that fails is because there's not enough magnesium present inside the cell to allow for the muscle to relax. So magnesium is all about relaxation. It's about deep sleep, and it's about the muscle relaxing. So potassium is all about contraction. So although it could help to have some potassium can actually make it worse. It's really not the my stand. What I've seen to be true for years now is that if you absorb the magnesium, it's not so much that potassium would be detrimental, because it could help. It's that for sure the body will react and respond to that magnesium, the relaxation effect of allowing that muscle, whether it's in your cramp, you're in your foot, the cramps in your foot, or in your calf, or it's a PMS cramp. Um, any of these, it's going to be very, very noticeably benefited by magnesium if you absorb it. Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I am stressed. And if you're feeling overwhelmed this holiday season, then I get it. With all the family get togethers, it is just a relentless source of stress. But anyway, there is something that I've got called Stress Guardian, and it's actually made by Bioptimizers, the people who make the magnesium breakthrough, which I love, love, love. But anyway, they are literally made this new product. It has 14 adaptogenic herbs, and it just regulates your stress. I just actually took some right this second, and it's awesome. If you go to stressguardian.com/wasteaway and put in waste away for 10% off your first order, it's stressguardian.com/wasteaway. Go there now.
So talk about that. That's one of the things that I'm really just passionate about right now, is that I feel like what's happening with people is like, they're like, I'm taking magnesium, or I'm taking this and I'm taking that. And what you're saying is, yes, they're taking it, but they're not actually absorbing it. I want you to really kind of dive deep on that, what they can do and why is it that they're not absorbing it.
Right. So the particle size of the mineral supplements you're trying to absorb is like this big. The blood cell size is like this big, and the particle size of the products we've engineered is like smaller than, the point of my index finger in this relation. It's about 1,000 times smaller than this red blood cell. Now, the particle size of the supplements we're talking about is up to 8 times larger than a red blood cell. So it has to go through the digestive process. And this digestive process is broken for most people. What I mean by broken is, unfortunately, most people have low stomach acid. Something like 9 out of 10 people we see that come in and do our hair analysis, which is a virtual process. It ships to you wherever you are. Those people, when they go through a consultation, we see signs that they have low stomach acid. We ask questions that reveal, a lot of different things, including they, most likely have other issues too, like, all sorts of different things. It could be leaky gut. It could be candida overgrowth, and we see that through ratios like calcium to magnesium. There's a lot there that we're up against, and from an absorption standpoint, this was the key thing I went to school for as a chemical engineer. It turns out it just so happened to be exactly what I needed to focus on to achieve this. So surprising, because at the time I had no idea what I was going to school for. I just knew it was really, really difficult. I heard it was one of the hardest majors you could take, and I was like up for a challenge and thought, okay, there'll be something valuable on the other side of this, and I'll see that later when I have that knowledge. And sure enough, I always wanted to be in health anyway, and then was driven by that need to research with my mom. And I think that the absorption aspect, we should think of it like this. So if you're listening to this, you've probably heard of, which this is in my mind, like very limited information that's not the best. So here it goes. The way it's been taught recently only in the last 10 years or so is you need certain forms of, for example, magnesium to do certain things. That's not at all how the body does it with food, though. So now the recent stuff has been, well, take all the forms. Here's a magnesium that gives you all the forms. That would seem to make sense. And most people don't think much past that. But the problem is that's not, let me ask it this way. Is that how your body developed, how your genetics developed over the course of time, way back to when we're hunter-gatherers, when we're on tribal plains, when we were developing the system we now use to digest our food and our nutrients? And the answer, I think, when you just think on it a little bit, is, of course, our body does not request magnesium this this form or that form, and this one is better than that one for certain things from food, when we get it from anything, whether it's a sweet potato or meat or anything, or fish, or any nutrient. It's not how the body does it. It breaks it down to the elemental size, and when it's small enough, let's say there's 50 steps in the digestive process, from eating it to going through the body, getting digested, and getting brought into the bloodstream. At that point, 50 out of 50 steps, it's ready to go in. What happens at that point? And that's really what I wanted to get clear on. It goes straight into the red blood cells. So what we do to improve absorption, knowing that most people are way over here in a stuck state of digestive incapability. They have almost no stomach acid, and they're drinking alkaline water on top of that, and they're making it worse. And then they're
oh my gosh, let's talk about that.
we'll get to that. We'll totally get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll totally get to that and other issues that are caused by that. There's so many things like that. That's unfortunately a bit of a marketing scam. And the body, what it really needs is more good acid, like lemon juice, low pH, so that, because the stomach anyway. So when you're thinking about absorption, what I'm really asking you to consider is think about it how the body does it naturally and has evolved to do it for millions of years now. And think about how we are not doing that when we're trying. What's happening when we're saying, take all these different forms? What we're doing is saying, well, we have Sam and Bob have figured out this manufacturing process 40 years ago that produces these different outcomes, magnesium, this and that and that and that. And what I'm really saying is we needed a different delivery system so that we could figure out how to mimic how the body responds and interacts with food at that step 50 out of 50 when it's ready to go into red blood cells. So what our products do is, as soon as you take them, they go into the red blood cells. Now, if you're using one of our capsule products instead of one of our liquid products, obviously you have to digest the capsule, of course. But almost everyone, really everyone, has enough stomach acid to digest that lipophilic capsule, which you put water on it, it starts to break down and dissolve. And then the plasma, what I've really done with our process is create a plasma. That plasma is just like what we're absorbing from food once the food is fully broken down. And then that goes straight into the red blood cells. Your digestive system didn't even have to work, which means you saved energy, as well as, it's just drastically more effective, virtually 100% absorption. And instead of, having people take our word for that, we've been in business long enough now that we've been able to do a clinical trial. I don't think we've talked about this, but we did a full double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial that was completely third-party, just like big drug companies do, to prove that, for example, our magnesium is now the most clinically shown product to improve deep sleep, REM sleep, have people falling back asleep easily, waking up with more energy. The stats were incredible. So yeah, that's kind of like, I'm talking about magnesium, but I'm also talking about, I just want you to know, as you're listening to this, every single mineral and element out there. Is iodine a mineral element? Yes. Selenium, blends that have zinc or copper or whatever it is that we've put out there for, for example, thyroid function or metabolism. So that's how I came to think about it, and that's ultimately what we help people with today.
You guys, I'm so excited. We are doing a free masterclass for you. It's actually on nontoxicfamily.com/masterclass. That's nontoxicfamily.com/masterclass. And it's going to be all about how to get rid of your gut infections, how to get rid of parasites. If you have painful digestion, if you are suffering from poor sleep, If you've got constant exhaustion, massive joint pain, or skin issues, then you need to get rid of the parasites that are holding your body hostage. I'm going to tell you right now, you're thinking, I don't have parasites. I don't have parasites. Yes, you do. I have Crystal with me. Crystal, tell them your joke.
Yeah. If you have a pulse, then you have a parasite or more. And the thing about parasites is they're sneaky. And even if they came back negative on a stool test that you did before, that doesn't matter. They can still be present. And so on this masterclass, we're going to teach you all the tips and tricks that you might have heard of but didn't know how to use, like diatomaceous earth, pumpkin seed protocols, garlic and berberine and black walnut, because you can't do all of these things, but you need to select a few that work for you. So we're going to go through all of that in this masterclass.
All right. And my son created a new site. It's called Non-Toxic Family. And if you're not following, go to nontoxicfamilynow.com or on Facebook, go to Non-Toxic Family. You'll see my son. He does all these great videos on how to be healthy. They're really great. And we actually put the free masterclass on this site. So it's nontoxicfamily.com/masterclass and sign up for free. Look forward to seeing you guys.
Yeah. So from what I'm hearing you say is that basically people don't have enough digestive enzymes, or their bodies are not releasing enough enzymes as they should. And so that means that they're not breaking down certain foods. It doesn't matter whether it's like really great nutrient dense food. If they can't break those foods down and absorb the nutrients to get in the cells, that's where the problem is coming from. And I also think a lot of people, I believe that I have a little bit of a damaged vagus nerve. And when you have a damaged vagus nerve, you can't send signals normally to your stomach muscles, and that can cause food to remain in your stomach longer, rather than move into your small intestines to be digested.
Right.
And for me personally, from the age of when I was between 20 and 22 or so, I was bulimic for 2 years. And then when I gave birth to my son, not on purpose, but I threw up every single day, a minimum of 6 times while I was giving birth. I was pushing and throwing up, pushing and throwing up. Wow. So for me, I believe that has caused some damage in my vagus nerve of, why I have trouble with, what you just said is you have to have those digestive enzymes. You have to have that acid in your stomach, because if you don't, that's going to cause so many problems. So let's talk about alkaline water, because I am not a fan of alkaline water. I think that causes so many problems. And I want you to tell us why you're not a fan of alkaline water.
So alkaline water, I believe, is not people like trying to make us unhealthy. That it's just people that purely were like, they listened to the cliff notes of something that, too long didn't read sort of thing. And someone in the marketing department was like, this is a different type of water. People will drink water all the time. We should just tell them that our water is, some crazy sort of like no basis in science. Because I tell you, there's like, you ask anyone that really knows chemistry, and they'll honestly, if they're not in health and they haven't heard or noticed these health trends, they'll probably look at you a little bit funny. Like you ask like a good organic chemistry teacher or something. I took organic chemistry 1, 2, physical chemistry, P-Chem, quantum, all these different things to get through chemical engineering. And then we go and apply that knowledge to building industrial processes. And then we get a major in math, a major in physics, or a minor rather. And then you apply all of that too. And there's some things that it's just kind of like the way we understand gravity. When you understand all of those different things, you kind of, it takes a moment. Like I remember being initially confused that people would even market alkaline water as that, because even 10 years ago, it was obvious to me that so many people had so much gut dysfunction, even before books like Wheat Belly came out, where they're like, gluten's bad. It's like, yeah, glyphosate's bad. Yeah, totally it is. But alkaline water, okay, so let's just start here. most people have low stomach acid, right? Stomach acid pH scale, going back real far to basic chemistry here. pH of 7 out of 14 is what? The midpoint, right? So 0 to 14, 7 is the midpoint. 7.36 or so is right where our blood pH wants to be. And if it's not there, this is how bone disease happens. Our body pulls from tissue or bone marrow to put into the blood, which is why I don't like blood testing for some things. For hormones, it can be fine. For minerals, heavy metals, don't like it at all. And we can talk about that too. But briefly, our blood is so important that our body knows that, and it pulls from even our bone marrow to get it into our blood. Now, once it's in the blood, unfortunately, most doctors and nutritionists even are trained to check the blood, even for things like mineral status, which, this builds everything. This is my new book that's coming out in 2024. It's about nutrition and personality. So how nutrition becomes personality. And unfortunately, when we're pulling from blood, we're almost never going to see a deficiency, because our body will pull it from tissue to put it in blood. So with alkaline, if our body needs to be at 7.36 or so, if we're already too low in acid, that means we're high, not low, right, in our body. And then we're putting in like a 8 or 9 or 10 pH, very basic, not acidic, but basic, into the body, and it just has to buffer it even more. So the way you get that basic quality is you have things like a lot of calcium. Our body, despite anything you've heard of, if you're listening to this, you've probably heard this before, but maybe not. One of the easiest things for us to get today is calcium. It's like 25-to-1 ratio of calcium to magnesium in most of our dairy products today. So do we need more calcium? The answer is absolutely not. You may not even need vitamin D or you may not want to take it even though you need it, or you have low levels of vitamin D, because calcium already being high, depending on how high it is in your body, which we see through hair tissue mineral analysis, and you can find out on our site. The thing there is that when you have too much calcium and then you put even more calcium in it, what you're through alkaline water and through way too much dairy and all these different ways to get calcium, even tap water, what we're doing is we're closing down the interference in the body's ability to cellularly communicate back and forth. And we're blocking and reducing, or at least reducing, the ability for the body to have other nutrients come in. Because what calcium does, there's a term called a calcium shell that we see in hair analysis, and that's above a certain number. So if you're like 190 or above in your calcium level, you're going to have a calcium shell in almost every case. And what that means is that is something that we understand very clearly is bad for the body. And then if we're taking alkaline water on it, we're just making it worse. So what we really need is really clear spring water that's, I like to salt it because most people are low in good quality sea salt too, and all the micronutrients that has. And then, you squeeze some lemon, squeeze some lime, things like you were talking about.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because when it comes to lemon juice, people say, okay, lemon juice has a pH level between 2 and 3, which makes it acidic.
Yeah.
But they say that lemon juice can have an alkalizing effect on your urine because it has very little influence on the pH of your blood.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So the actual definitions here and the way people are using words is very confusing, because you can have alkalinity does not mean more basic. So that's where people get confused. And I think that's where the original marketers of this water got very confused. Alkalinity is like a quality. and ideal alkalinity is a good thing. However, that doesn't mean that acids are bad. Now, like stress causes other issues, and that can change the blood pH and really mess it up, and then the body has to buffer it. So I would say yes, acids can improve the alkalinity of the body, which is not the same as making it alkaline or having alkaline water, unfortunately. And I think that's probably where the breakdown is, because I know that seems confusing, but there's a lot of things in chemistry that seem confusing. And then you go like many layers deep and you're like, oh, wow, it's obvious. But then a whole nother ocean of things that you don't understand then opens. And then you're like, wait a minute, there's a lot to make sense of here. So just to like neatly talk about this part, alkalinity improving because of acid being added via citrus, like lemon or lime, is a good thing. And it's unfortunately it's using similar words thanks to the marketing department of however long ago, but it's not the same. Yeah.
So talk about magnesium a little bit more, of how important it is and how to know what magnesium you need and which one is beneficial for what.
Well, that's what we're touching on, but yeah, happy to like try to approach that from a different angle. So you don't need to know anything about the forms when you're using our magnesium. It's called upgraded magnesium. This is what we did a full double-blind clinical trial on. To my knowledge, there's never been a supplement that's improved sleep more, but it also improves your ability to eliminate, so your ability to go to the bathroom, but it doesn't cause disaster pants, which is what something like magnesium oxide would do. Now, so what I would say is what you're probably taking, if you're listening to this and you're not taking upgraded magnesium, is you probably still have the side effects and deficiency symptoms of magnesium. Maybe that's cramps, maybe that's constipation, or your skin's not very clear because your body's reabsorbing those toxins. So, and also apologies, I just got Invisalign to sort of like open up some space in my mouth, and I'm like, lisping a little bit, so bear with me here.
Okay.
Just another month or so. So does that make sense? I'll just pause there. Yeah.
Makes sense.
And then anything else that I should kind of elaborate on there?
I think, well, one of the things is that, there's, lots of different forms of magnesium.
Yeah,
so
right.
Like in your magnesium, how many different forms are they? And just kind of briefly go over what the different forms are for. Yeah,
got it. So what ours is it's a elemental magnesium that's put through our process that I developed as a chemical engineer. And what that does is essentially it's just the element magnesium put through a process so that it's like plasma. And then afterward, since the body needs more stomach acid, I bind it with chloride. So on the label, unfortunately, it will look like nano magnesium chloride. However, it's not magnesium chloride at all. It's just, we have to call it something that FDA allows us to call it, and the industry. So it's a unique process, and it's just like food. But we're starting off with magnesium. We're using high voltage. We're changing the physical properties so that the chemistry in the body interacts the way the body would with food, and it's absorbed without digestion and nearly completely. We can't say 100%, but like 99.99%. And part of the reason why we do the hair test, Chantel, is and we offer before and after tests. I always recommend people do this quarterly, but so you have a map of where you are, where you are next, where you're going, and it keeps changing. because it's like a good surgeon using a good set of scalpels. You don't need just the knowledge of the surgeon, and you don't need only good scalpels or good instruments. You need the map, just like if we were on a road trip and we're trying to go from A to B, we need to look at the map often, right? We can't just like look at the map once and then get there, most likely. We need to look and go, oh, is it time for a turn? Oh, we just missed our turn. Or, well, yeah, we need a turn now. Otherwise, we'll be going in the wrong direction. So that's how I think of testing. And there's some other tests that you can do, but I think the interplay with this and testing is very important, I guess is what I'm saying, because, I trademarked the phrase test, don't guess, for example, to illustrate the importance of this point, which is a lot like saying gravity, like talking about gravity. Now, if we were high on a rooftop, 60 floors up, and I gave you an eye mask and I said, hey, you're not testing, so you have to put this eye mask on and you have to walk in a big figure 8, on this rooftop with no guardrails, you'd go, wait a minute, how do I get out of this? Like, I don't want to do that. That's what we're doing. The effects are not as immediate as stepping off a rooftop 60 floors up, but it is absolutely killing us on a cellular level, to not have the nutrients we need, because we're not listening to the body. We're not testing tissue, which is what hair is, bone is, organs are. Blood is a day's worth of data at best, and it can be influenced very easily. And by the time we see a deficiency in blood, there's probably disease present, because it's been dis-ease, a lack of ease in the body for a long, long time. And the body initially was able to counteract by pulling from these places like bone marrow and tissue and putting into the blood. But then we check the blood and we go, oh, you're fine. You're like, I don't feel fine. I have brain fog. I can't focus. My mood is like very vanilla or blah. So that's how to think of it. And every product that doesn't use a super advanced delivery system, like the one that we develop for upgraded formulas, is just not going to interact with the body the way the body wants to receive it. This phrase biohacking, I think of it as bioharmony, which is listening, like tuning in, listening to what does the body want? What does the body want? What does the body want? And the insight that I had a long time ago, and I continue to have it, is listening is the basis of success in anything. Listening is the first step in walking the right path. So when we have
listening to your own body and being able to heal yourself is really important. I love that, because it's a lot of people are just listening to what their doctor is saying, and you need this and you need that, instead of like getting information, listening to things like this podcast, and being able to, instead of putting in prescriptions, putting in the nutrients that you need. Let's switch gears real quick, because I want to make sure we have time to talk about iodine, because iodine, I feel like, is I have naturopath doctors that are really like, one person's like, you definitely need iodine. And some people are like, no, if you have thyroid issues, you have too much. I mean, it's
right.
all.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone will say, yes, everyone needs magnesium, but iodine is something not all naturopaths are on the same page. So I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Thank you. This is such a great question. And I am so happy to talk about it, because you're right, it's an important thing. And just like we were talking about earlier, anyone with a real basis in chemistry knows that there are certain laws, just like gravity. So I call it periodic law, which is a deep understanding of the periodic table, which we know, no matter what you believe, this table contains all the building blocks on the planet. It's what we're built of, right? We agree on that, right? If you're listening to this, right? Okay, so then it becomes, how do we test for that, and what do we need? So And we need pretty much at least a small amount of all these things. So when I've had Hashimoto's, I've healed myself from that. I've had thyroid deficiencies and I've improved those greatly. People have just self-reported to us that they went back to their doctor, and for the first time after taking upgraded iodine, because they actually absorbed it and they took enough of it, which is probably more than you're taking currently, and they absorbed it at a much higher rate. So those two things, they took more and they absorbed a lot more of it too. And then they took peak thyroid as well. That bundle, long enough, that was allowing them to give their thyroid the nutrients. So first I'll talk about this part and then we'll get to that part. The nutrients needed to produce the hormones from that gland, right? And then you have signaling hormones too, like magnesium and pituitary, back and forth. So it really is like an overall, you need, if you're low in magnesium, you probably also need that for this to work well. And this is why, again, I say test, don't guess. And using a hair test in addition to whatever you're doing doesn't mean you need to stop with whatever tests you're doing, but just add that in as a lens and have a great consultation with someone, which, again, we offer that too. This is the one test we do because it's so fundamental and everyone can afford it. And if you're not doing it, you miss things. It's a periodic table in action. So when you have copper, selenium, zinc, iodine, your body, and really the greatest of which for most people is iodine, but also conversion from inactive hormone, thyroid hormone, to active, you need things like selenium. You need zinc for signaling, so we have those nutrients in peak thyroid and upgrade iodine. People have gone back to their doctor, and for the first time ever, they weren't low thyroid. They weren't considered hypothyroid anymore. Because why? Their body had the building blocks. Like, first of all, what are the building blocks of hormones if you're listening to this, right? Think about it. What are the building blocks? And I encourage you to ask whoever you're talking to without saying anything else. Just go, so can you tell me the building blocks of thyroid hormones? And they might say fats. Fats is part of it. But without the minerals to activate all the enzyme pathways and to be the raw materials, you can't make thyroid hormone and you can't convert it. So if iodine is probably the largest, the singular most important there in producing the hormone, is there a use case where if you're going to have a high vitality life that you're going to stop taking iodine? So while you're thinking of that and you're listening along, I want to just also add in that the blue zones around the world, Japan, for example, is the healthiest industrialized country. Their IQ is also 130 on average, where in the US it's 100. And we know from Dr. David Brownstein's work years ago, he did many studies. A 600-person study in the US showed that 96% of people, some of which were already taking iodine, were deficient in iodine. 96%, some are already taking iodine. 96% are still seen to be low. 600 people. It's a big, big study. Anything over 20 people, by the way, is statistically significant. We had 31 in our clinical trial for upgraded magnesium, and we're doing a fertility trial for upgraded tea, which is a herbal product for boosting testosterone. That's also around 30. So 6, and that's plenty, but over 600 or around 600 for that study. What they saw is, first of all, they looked at Japan also. Japan consumes about 12 milligrams of iodine on average per person per day. Now, how much is that compared to our RDA, our recommended daily allowance of iodine in the US? Good question. It's 150 micrograms. Now, that's not thriving. That is like getting by, and anything less than that, the thyroid starts speaking to us in a language most of us don't understand, which is it starts producing what? Antibodies. So that's where the problem starts to me. That's not how you solve it. That's where it starts. It's a low amount of iodine. That's the reason why people have antibodies to begin with. And even if you're taking iodine, if you're in a very polluted area, iodine, what you have to understand, the person that jumps in front of the president if the president's getting shot at?
Yeah.
That's how iodine acts in the body when it's not able to just do the things that it wants to do. It'll do this stuff, but it sees mercury come in or it sees other anti-nutrients come in. It goes and protects against that. So iodine, my solution is, yes, you continue to take iodine in every case. You can do low and slow for a little while, but knowing that if you have to have some iodine every day to make the hormones, that is a law of chemistry and physics in the body. And then the way you get around it, if someone is very toxic around mercury, which we also see these levels in hair, you can just assume that you have some mercury, so have some aluminum, and you can start to take binders. And we actually, probably by the time this is out, we're going to have a binder product I've worked on for like 2 years. So very happy with that. And it's called Detox and Debloat. It will so simultaneously bind with all the metals that your thyroid is excreting if it's getting more iodine and it hasn't had much in a while. So it could take the mercury off the receptor sites. So there's these receptor sites in, with the gland, right? So if that mercury comes off, you want something to grab it and excrete it from the body. So that's what a binder does. A good binder, the right binder, does.
And I want to say, for people who don't really totally understand what binders are, they are basically natural substances that basically bind to the toxins that are in your body so they don't spill over into the inside of your body and trigger an immune reaction. Because what a lot of people are doing is all these detoxing things, and you don't want to detox and get that detoxing to be reabsorbed into the body before it can be eliminated. So it's kind of like a lint brush for your insides. So I've really kind of been studying binders, and I think this is where people start doing all these different things. As far as detox, parasite cleanses, and all these other things, but they're not using a binder. And so that is a major thing. So we will have a discount code for you so you can order the binders. I want to talk about what you just said with the iodine. My husband is so funny because he loves to have sushi. Like if it was up to him, he would eat sushi every day. And he does it with cooked, like he does it with the cooked, he doesn't like it raw, really.
Right.
The big thing is the seaweed. And so I realized, he's like, I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but when I eat sushi, I feel like $1,000,000. And it
iodine
dawned on me that it's like, you're missing iodine. That's what you're missing.
Yeah,
and for me, shrimp, it was like one of these things. I was like, I don't know what it is. Every time I eat shrimp, I feel like $1,000,000, and especially dairy. Like sometimes I cut dairy out of my diet, but when I have dairy, I actually feel better. And beef liver, which I won't eat beef liver, I have a supplement that you guys can buy. I'll put it in the show notes, and you can get a discount code, because instead of eating raw liver, it's just not my thing. Maybe it's yours, but I'd rather just buy the grass-fed liver capsules and do it that way. But I think that this whole idea is like, he realized, oh my gosh, he just, every time he eats sushi or every time he has shrimp, he's feeling like $1,000,000. And it's really the iodine that he's missing. And selenium too.
When you think about it, do an inventory of the foods you eat and look up a list of high iodine foods and see if you're eating any of those foods. And that may not be enough to reverse a deficiency that you've had for decades. And most of us, I believe I was born with an iodine deficiency, and most people are today, which is the other part of it too. If you're not eating much, if you're outside of Japan, it's not common that you're going to find iodine rich foods in your diet. You just won't. And that's okay, because you can supplement it. And also understand that if you're not supplementing it for that day, your body doesn't have it. It's not storing iodine or recycling it the way some nutrients get stored. So
I
it
want you
really
to
is a
talk about,
daily supplement.
I
Yeah,
want to talk about, I know that
that's a great point. Yeah.
people talk about the iodine test. I don't know. There's like, you can
Challenges.
take,
Yeah.
yeah, like you can take an iodine. I've heard different people, they take a mixture of iodine and potassium iodide, put it on
Yeah.
a cotton ball, put it like in a 2-inch circle,
hmm
like
What,
either in your inner
yeah,
thigh or upper arm. Have you seen that, or can you do it just like if I did it right
we can
now?
do it through hair. Yeah.
What if I did it through with this? Like if I took your
hmm
iodine and
hmm
I didn't do anything else, I didn't do the potassium iodide, but
Right.
if I
Right.
just took the iodine
hmm
and put it on my upper arm with a
Yeah.
cotton ball, and if it dissolves
Yeah.
within an hour, does that mean that I'm iodine deficient?
Well, Well, ours is, going back to that form, the form sort of thing, or the older manufacturing process. Most people that are taking that older style, it may show a deficiency that way, and maybe it's reliable, maybe it isn't. Two thoughts. One, we can test for this in the hair with a good consultation. Even though it's in such a small amount for most people in the body that it's not accurate to test for it directly, we look at about 12 different factors, and that lets us know. So you won't see it on your test, but you can ask your nutritionist, do you think I'm low in iodine? And if they can't read a hair test well enough to essentially read between the lines and tell you, then they're not a good person to interpret a hair analysis. Same with finding, and this is important too, for SOD pathway and thyroid function and just general like aging well and having good skin, detoxing well. Um, you need copper for that SOD pathway, one in particular. There's 4. So you can find copper directly, but you can also find something called hidden copper. Um, and hidden copper is something you find again by looking at about 10 different things in hair. And you look at a ratio and a range of, is zinc over this number? Is the ratio of zinc to copper, which most likely you wouldn't test for in blood either anyway. Is it between 12 and 20? What's my mercury to selenium ratio? What's my zinc to mercury ratio? A bunch of different ones that they can go through, and then you can start to notice, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's very, very sure that you have both hidden copper toxicity and iodine deficiency.
Let me
So
know.
that's how I test for it.
Have
And
you
our iodine is not staining like you're referring to. So it's clear it's not going to stain to do that iodine test the way you're talking about it. So,
can I use this iodine on my skin, or will it not work?
yeah, yeah, it will.
It will work on
It
my
will.
skin?
In fact, what I do before air travel too is I take the dropper. So this iodine has almost no taste. It's one of the few iodines out there that I've ever seen that has no taste. And if it's kind of, I guess, very mild coconut water is kind of what I say it has no taste. So it has a very, very, very slight. I squirt it into my nostrils and I breathe in really deeply. And then I'll gargle with it too, because it's antiviral. It's really cool. It's antiviral. So if you put this in a petri dish, viruses stop replicating. And then antibacterial, same thing. And then it's also antifungal, which is really cool. So, but it's sacrificial in the body. So you have to have plenty of it. And I believe that most people who have thyroid issues have a high, viral load. So their iodine is actually being utilized and sequestered over here to fight these other battles. It's kind of like an army that spreads itself too thin. When you have too little iodine, it's like we have this battle going on over here. This is fungal, bacterial, viral. And then we still need to run your thyroid and have your brain work well. And you're like, wow, and then you're like getting advice from someone that just repeated it. Oh yeah, you shouldn't take iodine. It's like, oof, wow. So that's not good advice. And And that's why. And we've also seen this. We've done thousands and thousands of hair tests and thousands of consultations. So we've seen people get better with the method I'm talking about. And, so.
Love it.
And you just need binders, with that process. So, yeah.
Well, we are out of time. This has been amazing. I'm going to put all of the links in the show notes. Hopefully you'll go there. I love these products, and I know you guys will be too. And you can get an amazing discount using the code Chantel Ray. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.